The restrictions set in place during the COVID-19 lockdown caused more harm to the global community and had many more lasting impacts than the virus itself. I found this topic very interesting and controversial, especially considering the conflicts and theories surrounding the virus itself. Many major and viral conflicts during the lockdowns arose specifically on social media and in news sources, stating that the effects that these societal shutdowns are having are impacting the mental and physical state of the population. This claim also connects very emotionally to me, as I personally lived through this virus and the lockdowns, having to experience the negative effects that it had on me and my peers, even though I never had the virus. Many people state that the conspiracies were an emotional response to the lockdowns and that because they didn't have physical interaction with others, they were falling into absurd reasoning as they had nothing else to believe. As many people have nowhere else to go, they are forced into a sort of corner where anything they hear or see becomes a reality as they become irrational and indecisive. The COVID-19 lockdowns came with many downsides, arguably and the most popularly the virus itself and its physical impacts. But as we look deeper into the negative effects, many seem to stem from the mental hardships and conflicts that were produced from the lockdowns. One of the most prominent downsides of these lock-ins were the mental health and depression rates dramatically spiking during this time. As these measures were particularly harmful to teenagers and the elderly, the average spike for adolescent citizens rose almost 19% during the lockdowns and around 8.1% for elderly people as the average for suicide rate. The lockdowns also had many more lasting effects and impacts than the virus. COVID ending millions of lives and being the prominent cause for these lockdowns still did not have the lasting effects that the lockdowns did, depriving millions of people of work, dropping stock markets to record lows, forcing substance abuse among many of individuals, preventing and minimizing social skills among young children due to isolation. The majority of the people impacted by these forces are still facing the unintentional consequences today, having increased homelessness, struggling families and individuals, and an underdeveloped younger generation, all attempting to recover from the lasting impacts and effects of the lockdown. COVID-19 was the most prominent and impactful event in well over the last 50 years. Major death rates, sickness spreading throughout the entire world, and lockdowns, isolating families, friends, and coworkers for years. Coronavirus being an extremely contagious and quickly spreading viral sickness that was only recently discovered before its outbreak was an extremely difficult conflict to resolve, as finding vaccines and weak points in a virus takes patience, research, and money. To be able to control the virus as much as possible before a vaccine was discovered, governments were forced to induce lockdowns and measures to reduce physical contact and to hopefully neutralize the virus. While these lockdowns did help the spread of the virus, many other things came crashing down, including stock markets, jobs, and education systems. Throughout late 2021, vaccines were being discovered and distributed globally, which led to an increase in a group called anti-vaxxers, who deny the true purpose of vaccines and created theories on their actual uses. Around 2023, many nations declared COVID-19 endemic in their region, leading to the end of the disease but not an end to the impacts that stem from it. The impacts of the coronavirus lockdown are parallels to past events, course themes, and popular culture. The U.S. prohibition being an extremely vulnerable and impactful time for the USA exemplified similar thematics to the measures taken during COVID. This prohibition involved the complete annihilation of and illegalization of alcoholic beverages in the United States, similar to the complete ban from physical contact and interaction worldwide during the virus. The prohibition of alcohol had many more negative long-term effects on the nation rather than the positive effects the ban had aimed for. Some effects included the rise of organized crime, illegal drug operations, rebellious groups, and economic consequences due to reduction of employment. Coronavirus exemplified similar attributes, including rebellious groups like anti-vaxxers and the annihilation of certain jobs during the lockdown. Although the alcoholic prohibition ultimate goal was to reduce alcoholism and alcohol-related crimes, and like COVID, the restrictions set in place caused more harm to the national community than the issue at hand. Some course themes that parallel this claim are utopianism, morality, and disruptors. Utopia is described as being impossible, having no place and no time ever. As our goals are always to achieve utopianism, we tend to contradict ourselves along the way. As our ultimate goal during the outbreak was to return society back to what it was before COVID, we contrasted this goal with our methods of aspiration. Implementing these laws and commands restricted people from what they actually wanted, contradicting the utopian ideal where everyone gets exactly what they want. The moral choice becomes a strong swaying factor in any decision, and the implementation of the restrictions was an act of moral dilemma. People don't always have the same wants, meaning there will always be at least one party that disagrees with the actions implemented, or will realize their moral standard even after the decision has been made for them. The disruptor is generally described as a creation that has a moral change in industry. The implementation of the lockdown is the same idea but on a much larger scale. These restrictions were for the people but inevitably had major negative impacts and consequences and long-term impacts on a global scale. A literary parallel to this claim is the Hunger Games and the capital's restrictions on the people. The capital implemented similar restrictions to those during the lockdown to limit freedom and disrupt daily life. Although these weren't the goals of the COVID lockdown, they resulted similarly, having low quality of life, economic instability, and tension between the citizens and the government. This claim has major impacts and relevance today, as the lasting effects of the lockdown are still influencing people's daily lives and the future of our global community. Until the mistakes and detrimental effects of the lockdown are resolved, this claim will stay relevant. As many other major events are, the lasting impacts will possibly last centuries, examples being the Holocaust and the French Revolution, both having impacts on daily lives tens and hundreds of years after they took place. The idea that the lockdown was more negative than the virus that caused it is exemplified through the events that took place. Although there were some positive outcomes to the lockdown, they nearly always overshadowed the negative effect the globe had to face. A lack of contact caused mental illness, small businesses being taken out, and people working ordinary jobs suddenly out of work with no other options. These all led to lasting impacts on society, leaving struggling individuals and groups with no options and the everlasting need for recovery from the mistakes of another party. While COVID had disappeared mainly, with short-term issues that have much less impactful effect on each individual person, with a measly death count of only 7 million in total on a global scale, less than 1/7 of the deaths caused by cancer in the same years. The global impact of COVID-19 was much less negatively influential and lasting than the implementations placed in order to control the virus itself.